The more coffee you drink, the more your body needs magnesium and calcium, which magnesium plays a key role in energy and sleep, and calcium supports muscle contraction and bone health. This is because caffeine can increase how much you go to the toilet, which the more you go to the toilet, the more minerals you lose, and how much magnesium and calcium is reabsorbed from your kidneys and back into the bloodstream. So if you're someone definitely like me who likes to drink a lot of coffee, make sure that you're prioritizing foods that are rich in magnesium and calcium, like dark leafy green vegetables, avocados, and pumpkin seeds, and if possible, good quality and ideally organic dairy.
No and yes. There's a nickel of truth to what he said here, but I believe this video of his can confuse some people that are consuming coffee. I would like to dig a little bit deeper into this topic and give hopefully people a little bit more clarity to this. Does coffee consumption have diuretic effects? Meaning, does coffee consumption increase urine output? So in other words, you having to go to the bathroom a little bit more. And if so, how much coffee do you have to consume until you reach levels that make you go to the bathroom more? Before we start digging into the papers, there's something important you should notice. Most of the studies that we will look at have not really used coffee, but caffeine as a marker, which I believe is of utmost importance. That is a very important detail to keep in mind. This study, released by Sank and colleagues, looked at the diuretic effects of caffeine during rest and exercise. This meta-analysis included almost 380 participants, of which 246 were males and 133 were females. And most studies were conducted in males only. The median age of the participants was 27 years, and the average caffeine consumption was around 300 milligrams. Half of the studies measured the diuretic effects of caffeine over 12 hours, and the other half of the remaining studies measured the diuretic effects of caffeine in a more acute manner of around 3 hours after ingestion. This is really key. We will get to this back later, but let's have a look at the results first. How you can interpret this graph is that anything above 0 favors the diuretic effects of caffeine. However, most of the studies did not reach statistical significance. This is because the lines that you can see that are spreading from left to right should not cross the line of null, which is the 0-point line in this graph. And most studies actually do. But on average, if we were to summarize all the studies, we see a very small effect. Hence the author's conclusion that caffeine did not lead to excessive fluid loss. But the effect was more pronounced in females, and this is probably because females metabolize caffeine slower than males. However, the studies included in this meta-analysis measured the effect of caffeine and fluid loss really acutely. They didn't really look at habitual caffeine consumers. That would be more reflective to the real world. And that is simply because how many coffee drinkers do you know that just drink coffee once per month? Most people that drink coffee do so on a daily basis, and several times on a daily basis. Another key point to keep in mind here is that they used the same dose for all the participants. On average 300 milligrams of caffeine. However, that 300 milligrams can have a different effect for someone that has a body weight of 50 kilograms compared to someone that is weighing around 90 kilograms. It would actually be fairer to calculate the caffeine intake based on the body weight. These are two key points which the following study that I will be sharing right now took into consideration. This study, released by Armstrong and colleagues, lasted for 11 days and recruited 59 healthy males. All the 59 males had to consume 3 milligrams of caffeine per 1 kilogram of body weight per day during the first 6 days. On days 7 to 11 is where they started to split the male participants into 3 different groups. One group consumed 0 milligrams of caffeine, that was the placebo. The other, the C3 group, consumed 3 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight per day. And the other group, the C6, consumed 6 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight per day. Caffeine was distributed in small capsules several times throughout the day. What were the results? What you can see here on the graph is the volume of the urine. If we shift our attention during the treatment phase, so on day 9 and 12, we can see that, yes, initially, during the first few days, the fluid loss, so the urine excretion, was higher, but it all went down during the last day of the study. Notably, there was also no statistical significance in urine sodium and potassium excretion, although it was slightly elevated, but not to a large margin. Hence, the authors concluded that habitual caffeine intake did not have a diuretic effect. What is also worth noting is that the average caffeine consumption of Americans lies between 165 to 230 milligrams per day. The 300 milligrams that we just took a look at and are commonly being used in many studies is not reflective of the average caffeine consumption of the Americans. More research has been conducted since the release of the study that we just looked at, and it's been greatly summarized by the following review. This review published by Jose Antonio and colleagues, came to the following conclusion. Moderate daily doses of caffeine, around 3 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight, or 250 and 300 milligram, which is again above the average intake of Americans, in habitual drinkers, that's the key part here as well, do not seem to increase fluid loss. But in contrast, high doses of caffeine, on the other hand, around 6 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight or above 500 milligrams per day, might increase the fluid loss. Bottom line, I don't believe habitual coffee drinkers that don't drink an excessive amount of coffee should scratch their head too much about this topic, especially for those that don't consume around 6 milligrams of caffeine per 1 kilogram of body weight. One espresso has 90 milligrams of caffeine and 1 cup of coffee has around 95 milligrams of caffeine. 6 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight would be the equivalent for me to drink around 6 espressos on a daily basis. I love coffee, but that's a little bit too much for me. What are your thoughts about this topic? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you during my next video.